Okay, let's get into the Fear of Yah series. The foundation of knowledge and wisdom. Call Kabawat Yahawah B'Shem Yahawah Shai. All glory to Yahawah in the name of Yahawah Shai, aka Yahusha. We prefer to not call him the J guy around here. Yarath Yahawah Rashayat Da'ath. The fear of Yahawah is the beginning of knowledge. We're going to take a look at Adam, where the pattern begins, where we see how this term fear is used. Okay? And then we're going to look at Sinai and how this pattern is revealed. Then we're going to take a look at how the pattern is taught. Then we're going to touch on obedience, how the pattern is lived. Okay? Remember, Scripture establishes the doctrine. The characters give us the picture. Walk in Yarath. Live in truth. Obey from the heart. Yarath Yahawah, the fear of Yahawah. The fear that governs the walk. Knowledge, wisdom, instruction, obedience. Lesson 1. Let's take a look at an opening witness. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. To read a little more context, start at verse 5 or at the top of the chapter. Solomon is saying, Yarath Yahawah, Rashayat Da'ath, Chakma Wa Mawasar, Awayalayam Bazawa. The fear of Yahawah is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So what is Shalama, aka Solomon, saying here? He's saying that Yarath Yahawah is placed at the Rashayat of knowledge, at the beginning of knowledge, at the height of knowledge, at the top, okay? And we're going to take a look at these words and we're going to break it down and see what he's really saying in the Hebrew language. Let's take a look at David, aka Dawad, Malak Dawad. Let's look at what this opening witness says. Psalms chapter 111, verse 10. Jump back to verse 9 or at the top of the chapter to read some more context. The fear of Yahawah is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do. That term, his commandments, is in italics, so it was added by the translators. So really, look at the power behind it without it. The fear of Yahawah is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do action. Have all they that do. His praise endures forever. Dawad connects Yarath Yahawah, the fear of Yahawah, to wisdom, understanding, and doing. Doing something about the wisdom that you have. Wisdom is about applying the knowledge that you have, okay? Let's look at this Hebrew word for fear. There's two words here, Yarah and Yarah, with an H at the end. Yarah means fear, revere, stand in awe. It also means respect. Yarah means fear, reverence, awe, and it also means respect. There's so many more things that this word means. And Yarath is the construct form, fear of, okay? So when you say Yarath Yahawah, you're saying fear of Yahawah or the fear of Yahawah. Let's see what's present in the Hebrew characters in each letter. You have the Yad, which means hand, work, deed, to name a few. You have the Ra or the Resh or the Rash, which is head or chief. And then you also have Allah, which can mean strength, power, chief, etc. Way more loaded than this. So just looking at the picture and what it's presenting, in a simple form it's saying the hand and deeds are governed by the head and strength of the chief. The characters provide a picture, but Scripture will establish the doctrine. The words of the force in Hebrew, they get watered down when you try to translate them into another language. So we have the hand and deeds are governed by the head and strength of the chief. And then you look at this added character, this ha right here, this H, this ha, which means behold, see, reveal, praise, worship. With the ha, the picture opens into revelation. What is feared and revered is brought into view. So when you begin to fear Yahawah, you begin to see clearly. You begin to worship him. He reveals things to you. He gives you revelation. of who he is. He gives you insight. Let's take a look at this Hebrew word for beginning, which is Rashaya, and it comes from Rash, okay? So let's look at Rash first. Rash means head, top, chief, okay? It's way more powerful than just the word beginning. Head, top, chief. Now take a look at the word that Solomon used and David used for this word beginning. Rashaya, beginning, first, chief, first part, okay? It's more than just the beginning of something. It's the chief part. It's the first part. It's the head, it's the top, it's the summit. Another definition is summit. You see this word Rashaya used in Genesis 1:1, where it says in the beginning, right? It's the Hebrew term Ba Rashaya. That means in the beginning. He's saying in the summit, the Most High created the heaven and the earth. See how it gives it a different essence? So what does Rashayat communicate in the lesson? Yarath Yahawah is not treated as a side subject. So Solomon in chapter 1 verse 7 is placing it at the height or summit or top of knowledge, and David is placing it at the Rashaya of Chakma, of wisdom. Here's the central idea revealed through the Hebrew. Proverbs 1:7. Yarath Yahawah Rashayat Da'ath. Okay? The fear of Yahawah is the top, the height, the first part, the beginning of knowledge. And then Psalm 111:10, Rashayat Chakma Yarath Yahawah. The fear of Yahawah is at the height. It's the height, the top, the summit, the beginning of wisdom. Okay, let's take a look at something in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. For context, start at verse 1, read through verse 13. We see Chawa, aka Eve, she eats from the tree Yah had forbidden them to eat from, then gives the fruit to Adam. Here's the command in Genesis chapter 2, starting at verse 16, and we'll read to verse 17. And Yahawah Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. Okay? That was the command given to Adam. All right? And we know his wife comes after him. She's created after him. And then look at Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. Look what she does after she's starting to have interactions with the serpent here. And let's see where the downfall is. The woman saw that the tree was good for food, pleasing to the eyes, and desirable for gaining wisdom. So she took some of it and ate. Okay? Let's contrast this lesson. She sought wisdom outside of fearing Yah. Okay? This is a different word for wisdom right here. It's the word shakal, which has to do with wisdom, success, skill. So it carries similarities in principle. But the point is, she sought wisdom outside of fearing Yah. The way you gain wisdom is through the fear of Yahawah. Yarath Yahawah. Yarath Yahawah is the beginning of wisdom. Tawab Shakal, a good understanding, belongs to all they that do. When you're acting according to the word of the Most High and according to his command, according to the fear of Yahawah, you have a good understanding. True wisdom does not begin with what we think is tawab or good, but with Yarath Yahawah, the fear of Yahawah, and walking in his word. This is all expounding on the lesson of Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 and Psalms 111 and 10. Now let's see what happens after Eve gives the fruit to Adam and he eats. Genesis chapter 3, verse 10. We're going to see the first time Yarath occurs here. Because remember, it also means fear, but it just depends on what's governing that fear. When Adam eats, Yahawah comes looking for him. He says, Adam, where are you at? Right? He says, Ayaka, where are you at? And then Adam's reply to the Most High is, I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. See that? He was afraid. He said, I was afraid. Yarath. He was uncovered now because he disobeyed. He gets the command in Genesis 2, 16 and 17. We see rebellion in Genesis 3 and 6. Then we see fear. And then after he's afraid, he hides. Adam's fear appears after the command has been violated. Let's look at Yarath with the H at the end, the Ha at the end. Let's see the first occurrence of this noun right here in Genesis chapter 20, verse 11. For context, read verses 1 through 12. It's when Abraham encounters Abimelech. He thinks they're going to kill him for his wife, Sarah, Shara. So then the story, he says, she's my sister. He doesn't want to get killed. But it's interesting, he says something here. He says in verse 11, he says, surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place. Ayan Yarath Elohim. So Abraham expects something to happen. He says, they will slay me for my wife's sake. The absence of Yarath Elohim is revealed in what people are willing to do. Now let's take a look at Abraham and his fear demonstrated through obedience. When the Most High asked Abraham to bring his son Isaac up to offer him, after he had waited all this time for the promised son, he tells the people before he goes up, the lad and I will be back. So he knew something. He just took Yahawah at his word. So he brings Isaac up. He's about to slay Isaac. A voice comes out, an angel. He says, don't touch the lad. Genesis 22 and 12. Read 1 through 12 for context. For now I know that you fear Elohim. Here's the evidence. Here's how he knew. Here was the proof that Abraham feared the Most High. Here's the proof that his fear was demonstrated through obedience. Seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son from me. Yarath, fear, is not merely what Abraham felt. Yahawah points to what Abraham did. He proved he feared Yahawah by what he did, by his actions, a good understanding to those that do. Let's take a look at the contrast. Let's look at Adam versus Abraham. Let's look at how fear showed up in both cases. Adam, he was given the command and he rebelled and he hides. His fear appears after the transgression. So when he transgressed or when he rebelled, the other side of this fear showed up and he hid. Now let's look at Abraham. Abraham was given a command and he obeyed. The command that Yahawah gave him led to obedience. With Abraham's case, fear governs conduct before judgment. Adam disrespected the Most High by not keeping his command. So fear appeared after the transgression. Abraham had respect for Yahawah. He was given the command and he obeyed. That fear governed his conduct to obey him before judgment. Let's make this clear here. Feeling terror after violating his command is not equal to ordering your life by the fear of Yah. It's not the same. It's not equal. What did Yah give at Sinai? The 10 words and what followed. Deuteronomy 10 verse 4. And he wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments which Yahawah spake unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And Yahawah gave them unto me. See where it says the 10 commandments right there? It's the Hebrew phrase, Yarath Yahawah. It literally means the 10 words or the 10 matters. That wasn't the end. The 10 Commandments wasn't the end, and that was it. And we're going to take a look. So, why dabarayam? Why words or matters instead of matzvah, commandment? Okay? It says here, ha dabarayam, the words, the matters. Okay? It says, he gave them 10 words, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this Hebrew term, Ashar Dabar Yahawah, which Yahawah spoke. In the text, Dabar appears in the noun family and again as the verb spake. The verse itself links the 10 words to Yahawah's own speech. It was him speaking to Yasharal, the congregation, directly. Okay? The emphasis is the 10 words which Yahawah spoke. Dabarayam identifies the covenant declarations as spoken words. Matzvah, or commandments, the commandments, emphasizes a command or charge. Here the text emphasizes what came directly from Yahawah's voice at the mountain. That's why it says the 10 words, the 10 matters, because it's what came from his voice directly at the mountain. Okay? Even though the English KJV renders it as the 10 Commandments in English, but when you read the Hebrew wording, it's saying the 10 words or the 10 matters. The first word begins with a declaration. It's more than 10 grammatical commands. Okay? In Hebrew, you have Anakai Yahawah Alahayaka. Anakai Yahawah Alahayaka. It means, I am Yahawah, your Alahayim. So Dabarayam covers the whole body of declarations. He's talking to Yasharal. Okay? So it's covering the whole body of declarations, which encompasses who Yahawah is, what he did for Yasharal, aka Israel, what he forbids, what he commands, and how the covenant people must relate to him and one another. The 10 words are the 10 divine statements Yahawah spoke directly to the nation. It wasn't just 10 commandments and that's it. That's what he spoke to them publicly about. Watch. The people get afraid, they hear Yahawah's voice, and Masha, aka Moses, he gives the functional purpose in Exodus chapter 20, verse 20. For context, you want to read verse 1 through 20, okay? So you can get the whole scene. But we're talking about the fear of Yah here. Look what Moses says. After they flip out, get afraid, Moses says, fear not, for Elohim is come to prove you, test you, that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not, that you don't miss the mark, that you don't transgress his law. He's testing you. That his fear may be before your faces, so that you sin not. Because you can't walk in obedience without the fear of Yah. It's not a contradiction in the statements. He said, don't be afraid. Don't have that fear. Have his fear. See that? There is a difference. Biblical fear cannot be reduced to panic or terror. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 5, read verse 22 through 24. The public revelation reaches its boundary. These words Yahawah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a great voice. And he added no more. People stop right there, but you got to keep reading. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it came to pass, when you heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, for the mountain did burn with fire, that you came near unto me, even all the heads of your tribes and your elders. And you said, behold, Yahawah our Elohim has showed us his glory, and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. So the term he added no more marks the end of this direct public address to the assembled nation, not the end of the revelation to Moses. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us if we hear the voice of Yahawah, our Elohim, any more, then we shall die. For who is there of all flesh that has heard the voice of the living Elohim speaking out of the midst of the fire as we have and lived? Look what they say next. Verse 27. Go near, and hear all that Yahawah our Elohim shall say. And you, Moses, you speak thou unto us all. They said, Moses, you speak to us. You speak to us all that Yahawah our Elohim shall speak unto you, and we will hear it and do it. Cap. They said, no, Moses, no. We're afraid, man. We're going to die. You go talk to Yahawah. It wasn't just 10 commandments. It was, they got the 10 declarations, the 10 words. Then they got afraid. Then they said, check this out, Moses. Whatever else he needs to say, you tell us. We'll hear you. We'll do it. They wanted a mediator. The nation asks Moshe to receive from Yah what comes next and to teach it to them. Context. Oh, that there was such a heart in them. And then look at verse 28. And Yahawah heard the voice of your words, and when you spoke unto me, and Yahawah said to me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people, which they have spoken unto you. They have well said, all that they have spoken. Said, sounds good. They've spoken well. Then look what he says next. Oh, that there was such a heart in them, that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Yahawah was after their heart. He said, oh, that there was such a heart in them. That's telling you something right there. Seems a little evasive. So we have the heart, fear me, keep my commandments always. The issue is not whether they experienced terror at Sinai. Yahawah desires a heart whose fear governs continued obedience. He desires a heart whose fear governs continued obedience. That's the heart posture. That's the state of the heart that Yahawah desires. Continued obedience. Not be afraid and run and be disobedient, but respect him and continue to obey him. That's what he's after. That's what he desires. So the people return, Moshe stays. Verse 30, Yahawah says, go say to them, go into your tents again. He said, tell them to leave. Tell them to go into their tents. Go home. Verse 31, but as for you, stand thou here by me. He said, but for you, Moses, you stand right here. Moses, he remains to receive more. Yahawah continues to give him a revelation. Yahawah continues to talk to him. Yahawah continues to give him commands. They called it at the 10 sayings and went home. So this is why we have the term, he added no more in that verse. Because the public voice stops. Then the mediated revelation continues. So when we look at verses 31 through 33 in chapter 5 of Deuteronomy, what is Yahawah going to reveal to Moses? What's he going to reveal to him? But as for you, stand thou here by me, and I will speak unto you all the commandments and statutes and the judgments which you shall teach them, that they may do them in the land which I give them to possess it. See? Right there. Verse 32. You shall observe to do, therefore, as Yahawah your Elohim has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. Look at verse 33. You shall walk in all the ways which Yahawah your Elohim has commanded you, that you may live. He gave the revelation to Moses to teach Yasharal to do and walk in it. Chapter 6, it continues the same sentence of thought. Deuteronomy 6, 1 through 3. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahawah your Elohim commanded to teach you, that you might do them. See? Moses turns right around and says, now these are the commandments. See? He continued, that you might do them in the land where you go to possess it, that you might fear Yahawah your Elohim, and keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you and your son and your son's sons all the days of your life, that your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it might be well with you. Read the context. Teach, do, fear Yahawah, keep for generations. Here's the bridge. Sinai brings Yarath Yahawah into view. The public revelation, Deuteronomy 5:22, he added no more. The heart, oh, that they had such a heart in them. La Yarath, that they would fear me. Commandments, keep always. Then Moshe receives more commandments, statutes, judgments. Teach and do and fear Yahawah. This is why the fear of Yah, Yarath Yahawah, can stand at the Rashayat, the height, the top, the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. It governs how revealed instruction is received and done. There's different words for fool, but let's look at this word fool right here. Nabal. These words carry similarities in principle. Do you thus requite or repay Yahawah, O foolish people and unwise? The first mention of Nabal is not a man who never heard of Yahawah. Moshe's rebuking Yasharal for responding corruptly to the one they knew. The word fool, Nabal, right here means senseless. A Nabal acts like a fool. It's not just a fool in his head. His conduct, his action tells you that person's a fool. Now the verse has some history behind it. Now we can see this is what comes out of the fear of Yahawah. Knowledge, wisdom, instruction or correction, and doing. The correction keeps you on the path. The fool in Proverbs rejects the very wisdom and correction that Yarath Yahawah produces. Now let's look at the fool of Proverbs 1 and 7, Awayal. It's the word Awayal in Hebrew. You can read Job chapter 5 verse 1 through 3, and it's also in, like I said, Proverbs 1. You'll see it in verse 7. Job chapter 5 verse 2, wrath killeth the foolish man, Awayal. That's what the book says. Stick to what the book says, not what you feel. Proverbs develops the character. This fool despises wisdom and instruction. Verse 7, he despises it. He despises wisdom. He despises instruction. Because remember, Proverbs 1 and 7 says the fear of Yahawah is the beginning of knowledge. So a fool despises the wisdom, the skill that he needs to apply the knowledge, and the fool despises the instruction, the correction that's going to keep him on the path. He despises it. Chapter 12 verse 15, it says, his own way is right in his eyes. Talking about the fool here. The fool despises his father's correction. Chapter 15 verse 5. Look those up in Proverbs. Awayal, this word fool right here, Awayal, it's not simply low intelligence. He resists the correction that would make him wise. The correction's right there, and he resists it. It's right there, and he resists it. What does it mean to despise? Okay, let's take a look at this word bazah, which means despise. It's the same basic idea as bawaz, that word despise in Proverbs 1:7. These are two different words, but they have the same basic idea. Context, Genesis 25, 31 through 34. If you want to start at the top of Genesis 25, go for it. Jacob and Esau. Isaac blessing his children before he goes to sleep with his fathers. Esau is the firstborn, so he was in line for the firstborn right, the birthright. But after he came back, all lethargic and dramatic and worn out and hungry and all this stuff, Jacob said to him, "Sell me your birthright." Genesis 25 and 34. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Bazah. This word despise means contemptible. Esau's action showed what value he placed on the birthright. Esau despised his birthright. He didn't care about it. It's the same principle when a fool despises wisdom, when a fool despises instruction. Similar, Esau despised his birthright. He didn't care. It was worthless to him. Esau's actions show what value he placed on the birthright. We're talking about fools despising wisdom here, and fools despising correction. They despise correction. They think correction is worthless. You can't tell them nothing. Instruction is richer than just information. This word mawasar in Proverbs 1 and 7. This word correction, the one the fool despises, Deuteronomy 11, verse 1 and 2, and you'll see this occurrence of mawasar, instruction. Some people say musar. Deuteronomy 11:2 says, "Know ye this day, for I speak not with your children which have not known, and which have not seen the chastisement of Yahawah." The chastening, the instruction, the discipline, the correction, mawasar. It means instruction, discipline, correction, chastening. The fool despises instruction. The fool despises discipline. The fool thinks correction is worthless because you see it in their actions. Because if they valued corrections, their actions would reflect it. The fool despises chastening. Mawasar. Yahawah's corrective dealings, not merely classroom information. Proverbs 1:7 talks about how the fool despises the discipline designed to shape their walk. Here's the fool right here. Look at him. The fool despises the wisdom needed to apply knowledge. The fool despises correction, discipline, and instruction meant to keep them on the path. The fool doesn't want to hear it. Here's the progression. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 24 through 32 explains the rejection. He called, they refused. His counsel, they didn't want none of it. They ignored it. Reproof, correction, they didn't want none of it. They didn't accept none of it. Knowledge, they hated it. The fool hates it. The fear of Yah did not choose it. Look at verse 29 right here. They hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of Yahawah. Let's take a look at Psalms chapter 53, verse 1. You'll also see it in Psalms 14 and 1. For some reading context, you can read Psalms 53, 1 through 3. You can read Titus chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. Okay? But let's take a look at Psalms 53 and 1. The Nabal, the fool's heart speaks, and his works reveal it. Okay? So in Hebrew we have Amar, Nabal, Balabawa, Ayan, Alahayim. That means the fool has said in his heart, there is no Alahayim. Think about that. The fool has said where? In his heart. So in Psalms, the lab, the heart, the inner saying, the will. Okay? So when he's saying that, it's corruption. There comes abominable conduct that reflects that. There's none doing good. Titus 1 and 16. Look what he says. They profess that they know Alahayim, but in works they deny him. See that? They say they know him, but their works deny him. You see that? You can say all day long that you know him, but if your works deny him, your works are speaking for themselves. That's another reason why. That's why he said, the fool has said in his heart, there is no Allah, because it doesn't matter what the dude is saying. It doesn't matter what the person is saying. You see what's going on in that person's heart by how they behave. And how they behave tells you that they believe that there is no Allah. Their behavior tells you, based on the way I act, there is no Allah. This isn't just some statement that you pawn off to atheists. A person can profess that they know Yah while denying him in their heart and by how they live. They can say they know Yah all they want, but look at how they live. And they live like they don't know him because they don't. They deny him in their works. Here's some sources you can check out of where some of the things were listed that we discussed. Let's look at wisdom versus self-assurance. A fool can be right in his own eyes. Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. The fool doesn't heed. The fool doesn't hear, listen to, or obey counsel. If a person doesn't heed, listen to, or obey counsel, they're a fool. Proverbs 26:12. Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. There's an even deeper danger, being convinced that your own wisdom is sufficient. Self-confidence does not prove wisdom. Yahawah exposes a generation determined to reject. Wisdom is justified in its children. Matthew chapter 11, verse 16 through 19. But to what shall I liken this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to their companions and saying, we played the flute for you and you did not dance. We mourned to you and you did not lament. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, look, a glutton and a winebibber, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is justified by her children. You have opposite complaints, the same rejection. But let's take a look at this. Wisdom is justified in her children. What does justified of her children mean? Let's take a look at the Greek terminology here. The Greek terminology, idikaiote. Someone said edikaiote, which means to show, declare to be righteous or right. Vindicated, shown to be right. The Hebrew parallel is zadak, which means to be right, righteous, to be justified. Now this word children right here, teknon, child, offspring, descendant. Wisdom is vindicated by what it produces. The children of wisdom are going to bear fruit of that. The fruit identifies the wisdom. Matthew and Luke say the same thing. Wisdom is justified over children, or its children in Greek. Wisdom is recognized and proven by its fruit, by the people who receive it, follow it, and demonstrate its rightness in what it produces. The takeaway for lesson 1, the foundation. Yarath Yahawah sits at the Rashayah, the chief, the top, the summit of knowledge and wisdom. Adam shows fear after transgression. Abraham shows fear governing obedience. Masha, his fear is before you, that you sin not. That's what Masha said. His fear is before you, that you sin not. Awayal, the Awayal despises wisdom. The fool despises wisdom and correction, and does not choose the fear of Yahawah. The Nabal's inner man can say, Ayan Allahayim, and his works reveal the denial. Okay? Yarath Yahawah, the Rashayah, the chief, the beginning of knowledge. Proverbs 1:7. The fool despises wisdom, correction, and instruction. The wise values and accepts wisdom, correction, and instruction. We'll continue to research this out in lesson 2. Until next time.